Dr. Saths Cooper is the president of the Pan-African Psychology Union and joins us on the program now. Dr. Cooper, it's lovely to talk to you again. How do you view these developments? An acceptable mistake or staggering ignorance and lack of understanding of South Africa and South Africans?
I think it's quite bizarre, and I think that our low standing in the world has allowed this very low-cost airline to impose its own regulations, thus making it torture for those travelers who they carry between Europe on a low-cost charge. I think that they've misunderstood the reaction, and they're trying to butt cover right now. It's good that both the Irish government as well as the UK government distance themselves from it, but I think it's not good enough because those two are the regulatory agencies. This airline began in Dublin with a few people starting it off, and its second base of operations is in the UK. So they need to, that is the Irish and the British governments, need to actually do something so that we don't continue to become the whipping boy of such outrageous actions by these airlines and other entities, by the way.
So this was Ryanair's attempt to limit passengers fraudulently boarding their flights. This is what they say, and as you've explained, it's a stunning display of ignorance. If it was their attempt to create this as a measure of South Africanness, how might they be re-educated if that was indeed their intention, Dr. Cooper?
Well, first of all, it is the cheek to suggest that South Africans are the ones that have these false passports, whereas we know that passports from nearly every country can be forged, but that alone is quite egregious. Then to rely on an outdated usage of Afrikaans and profiling. You see, they actually do profiling. And I think there's a certain method that they end up using for those that may seem to be untoward in the eyes of the airline staff. That alone is quite prejudicial, and it causes a lot of discomfort to those travelers, because I've read about how people, single parents, their children coming back from holiday were stopped, and they live in the UK, they work in the UK. So what else do you need? And it's interesting, Iman, that even the Afrikaans has come out against this, saying that it actually impugns Afrikaans further in this country, which can well do without division. I saw a comment, by the way, that says we've had Bell Pottinger, now it's Ryanair. And I think that closes the loop for us.
Well, just on that last point that you raised, and you mentioned the Afrikaans Language Board, I mean, that reaction from them was thought-provoking, because they say this has major implications for the progress that South Africa, the language has in South Africa. It also undoes its work on positioning Afrikaans more positively. Do share your thoughts with us on the reasons for the negative association our country has with Afrikaans through our history, a history that you and others even went to jail for. You spent a considerable amount of time on Robben Island.
Yes, well, look, it's well known that the high point in our struggle was June 16th, 1976. This happens in that month. We're just days away from marking June 16th. And the protest was against the forced use of Afrikaans in schools. It brewed for quite a while, and eventually it was imposed. And the result was what we saw, and a turning point in the struggle for liberation, because thousands of young people took to the streets, became enthused with struggle, and many of them left for abroad and joined the ANC, the PAC, and so on. The result is that we now have a democracy in the 28th year of our democracy. This is a recidivist regression by a group that actually is, in a way, portraying South Africa in a way that it ought not to be. And I think that the Afrikaans Taalraad has come out best in this, because they don't want their language, which they hold dear, to be further impugned in a society with so many divisions, with so many influences, and we don't need the Ryanair's of this world to impose their little bigotry on us.
And you've given us a lot of clues as to this last question, Dr. Cooper, and we have just a brief answer, if you can accommodate us. DIRCO says it's investigating. We'll wait to see how that turns out. But how should we as a country be treating this moment?
I think we need to reject Ryanair and anybody else who attempt to stereotype and profile us in this terrible way. I think that they've misconstrued the reaction. They have no business to deal with what they're dealing with. They have assumed the position of governments whose rightful job it is to check out fraud. And it is really egregious. They should apologize to this country, and there should be some reparation to those passengers who have been hurt by this.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Dr. Saths Cooper, Pan-African Psychology Union president, there on this outrage that was sparked earlier this week when Ryanair asked South African travellers to fulfill a questionnaire or to fill out a questionnaire in Afrikaans.